My name is Avery Lockwood, and I'm 36 years old. Competence doesn't make noise. It hums. It's the dishwasher slipping into off-peak at 12:01 because months ago I programmed it that way. It's the budget spreadsheet where every cell turns green by the second Tuesday. It's the house deed where my name stands alone, steady as a hull with ballast. No one praises ballast until the boat starts to list. That Tuesday evening, the boat hadn't listed yet. It just gave a soft, warning creak. The living room was warm, golden, staged like a magazine photo I didn't intend to create. The lamp carved a triangle of light across the rug Caleb picked, which always meant I paid and he approved. The scent of roasted garlic and eucalyptus drifted faintly from the kitchen. I was closing out end-of-month expenses when his phone, left on the coffee table, buzzed twice. Normally, I ignore notifications. We never had privacy issues, or at least I thought we didn't. The preview line glowed up at me. Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. From a contact labeled Yoga Renewal. Pretty sure the local yoga studio doesn't send heart emojis. My fingers froze over the keyboard, but nothing in my face moved. Not a twitch, not a breath. I stared at the message while the dishwasher droned its soft off-peak hum in the background. The sound usually soothed me. Tonight it felt like a metronome counting down to an implosion. The shower stopped running upstairs. A moment later, Caleb patted down barefoot, towel slung around his shoulders, hair damp. "Hey babe," he said, casual as a sunrise. "What's for dinner?" I clicked the laptop closed. "Leftovers," I answered, voice level. "How was your workout?" He stretched a little too dramatically, chest out, muscles flexed, like he needed to play the part of someone who'd actually been lifting weights. "Oh, good," he said, really pushing myself lately. "Yeah, I bet." But out loud I just hummed, neutral, non-reactive, like a woman who didn't just watch her relationship slide off a cliff. Later, over dinner, he announced that he'd be meeting some friends at a new bar. "Just a chill night, you know how it is." I said. "Have fun." Have fun was code for I'm watching you now. But he didn't hear the subtext. Or maybe he did, but underestimated me. When he left, dressed a little too nicely for a casual hangout, I waited 5 minutes. Then I took my keys, slipped on my jacket, and followed. Not recklessly, not dramatically, just a quiet drive through familiar streets, careful distance kept. He didn't go to a bar. He drove across town to a gated apartment complex, parked, got out, checked his phone, smiled, a soft, private smile I hadn't seen in months. Then he entered Building C. I stayed in my car, engine off, heart steady. If anything, my pulse dropped. Cold clarity has always been my defense mechanism. 37 minutes later, he emerged, looking lighter, looser, happier than anyone should be after drinks with the guys. His shirt was slightly untucked. His hair mussed in a way the gym never caused. He didn't see me when he drove out. I got home before him, sat on the couch again, opened my laptop, went back to my budget template like nothing happened. When Caleb returned an hour later, he launched into an animated story about some friend's breakup and how wild the night had been. I listened, nodded, asked small questions, all while the tab next to my spreadsheet silently opened a new folder. Cal, documentation. The next morning, while he slept in, I booked a consultation with an attorney. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't even shake. People think betrayal feels like fire. For me, it felt like ice. Quiet, creeping, numbing in its precision. The attorney's office was sterile and bright. A woman named Dana Caldwell, sharp-eyed and calm, asked me to walk her through everything. I didn't embellish, just recited the facts. The message, the lie, the apartment. She nodded. "You're handling this rationally. That will give you incredible leverage." I didn't feel powerful, I felt hollow, but I nodded anyway. "Start documenting everything," she continued. "Calls, texts, locations, financial transactions, especially if he tries to access assets that belong to you." "Already started," I murmured. Her brows lifted slightly. "You're thorough." "I have to be." Over the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life. The partner Caleb believed still trusted him, and the woman quietly building a case behind the scenes. His phone logs, hundreds of calls to the same number, credit card statements, hotel charges I didn't make, GPS history, hours at the same apartment complex, during times he claimed to be at the gym, or grabbing dinner with colleagues. What I didn't know yet what would make all of this spiral into something darker and more twisted was who he was seeing. Back then, I assumed it was someone new, someone impulsive, someone he'd risk everything for without thinking. It never crossed my mind that it would be his ex-girlfriend, the woman who had broken his heart 3 years before I met him. I didn't know her name then. I didn't know the timeline. I didn't know the secret she carried. All I knew was that the man I fed, housed, supported, and thought I would marry was cheating on me through a contact disguised as yoga renewal. He still didn't know I knew. He still kissed my cheek in the morning. He still apologized for working late and losing track of time. I still played along, because competence doesn't react. Competence gathers receipts. It wasn't until his sister cornered me outside my office, eyes darting nervously, voice too soft, that I felt the first tremor of something larger moving under the surface. "You look tired," she said. "Are things okay between you two?" I blinked at her. "Why wouldn't they be?" She hesitated, almost spoke, then swallowed the words like they were poison. "No reason. Forget I said anything." She left quickly, too quickly. And for the first time, I wondered if I wasn't the only one holding a secret. But that revelation, the real one, would come later. Much later. For now, all I knew was that the boat was starting to tilt, and I was the only one holding the ballast. I didn't plan a confrontation. That's never been my style. People imagine betrayal as a screaming match in the kitchen, someone throwing a vase, someone else storming out. But silence is its own violence, and mine was cold, calibrated, patient. The documentation folder grew every day. Location pings, credit card transactions, phone logs, screenshots, notes with dates, times, and Caleb's exact wording. Competence doesn't flinch, it prepares. 2 weeks after the first message, Caleb's lies became strangely scripted, as if he'd memorized excuses but kept mixing them up. Grabbing dinner with Chris, he said one evening. Chris posted an Instagram story at home. Working late, he said another night. The office's parking lot camera showed he left at 5:18 p.m. But I didn't question him. I smiled. I made him coffee. I kissed his cheek. And every night, I added another line to the growing dossier. The night I confronted him technically wasn't a confrontation. It was Sunday morning. Sunlight spilled over the kitchen island, catching on the steam of my tea. Caleb walked in, phone in hand, expression tight. That was the first red flag. He usually left it face down on the counter, like a teenager hiding something. "Morning," he said flatly. I stirred my tea. "Morning." "What's wrong?" "Nothing." He studied me. Maybe he sensed something shifting. Maybe he recognized his own lies ricocheting through the air. Or maybe he just feared losing the comfort of the life I built. "You're being weird," he said. "I'm being quiet," I corrected. "There's a difference." He opened his mouth, then his phone buzzed. He jumped. I watched the screen tilt just enough to catch the preview line. "Miranda, I need to see you tonight, please." Ah, so that was her name. Caleb quickly flipped the phone over, but it was too late. I took a sip of tea. "Meeting Chris again?" I asked lightly. His throat worked. Yeah. I placed the cup down gently, like I was setting a bomb with velvet gloves. "Funny. He posted pictures from a hiking trip this morning." His face fell. He stumbled, made up some hasty explanation that didn't even resemble truth. Something about plans changing, miscommunication, how he forgot, how I shouldn't overthink. But I wasn't overthinking, I was observing. "Anyway," he said, voice a little too loud, "I'm going out later." I nodded. "Of course you are." His relief annoyed me. He thought he dodged a bullet. He never saw the gun. When he left that evening, with unnecessary cologne and the same too neat hair, I waited 15 minutes, then sent a message to my attorney. "He's meeting her again tonight." She replied within 3 minutes. "Good. Keep logging. Do not confront him until we're ready." I drove again. Same route, same apartment, same building C. This time I saw her. Miranda. She opened the door before he even knocked. Dark hair spilling over her shoulders, loose blouse, one hand resting protectively, instinctively, over her stomach. A stomach that wasn't flat. A stomach that curved ever so slightly. I didn't react. Not outwardly. I simply watched, heart slowing, not racing. Because suddenly everything made sense. The frantic calls from Caleb's mother, the strange worry in his sister's eyes, the sudden financial desperation in his settlement demands. He wasn't just cheating. He was planning a future that didn't include me, but would require me to pay for it. I left before he came out. I didn't need more footage. I had enough. When I reached home, I began boxing his belongings. Not throwing, boxing. Neat, labeled, organized. Caleb walked in at 1:07 a.m. He froze in the doorway. What's all this? Your things, I said plainly. Please take them by the weekend. He scoffed. You're being ridiculous. I'm being practical. You can't just kick me out. I can, I said, and I am. He stormed in, voice rising. You're paranoid. You're overreacting. I opened my phone, tapped the screen, displayed an album titled Cal Evidence. Message screenshots, GPS logs, hotel charges, photos of him entering the apartment, photos of Miranda's hand on her stomach. His face drained of color like someone pulled the plug on him. This isn't fair. None of this is... I tilted my head. Be careful. I'm recording this conversation for my attorney. He shut up instantly. Rage and panic flickered across his expression, but self-preservation won. He tried to change tactics. His voice softened. Avery, listen. We can work through this. No, I said softly. You should have thought about that before sleeping with someone else. He screamed, then pleaded, then threatened, then cried. I simply continued packing. By the weekend, he was gone. That's when the harassment began. First came the unknown calls. Different numbers, all blocked. Then Caleb's mother showed up unannounced at my office building. Cheeks flushed, voice trembling with performative grief. You can't throw away 4 years over a mistake, she cried. It wasn't one mistake, I replied. It was months of lying. She loves you, she blurted. He should have thought about that before cheating. Her eyes hardened. You're cold, you're vindictive, you're... Done with this conversation, I said, walking past her. Next came Caleb's sister with a different tactic. Soft voice, concerned expression. He's a mess, she whispered. Please don't take the house from him. The house is legally mine, I replied. I'm not taking anything. I'm keeping what I own. But they didn't stop. Someone reported my car stolen. I spent 3 hours verifying ownership. My credit card was shut down for fraudulent activity. My streaming accounts locked out. Gym membership canceled. Minor inconveniences. Death by 1,000 cuts. Dana's advice was always the same. Document everything. It shows a pattern. I did. And then came the settlement request. Caleb's lawyer emailed my attorney a list so laughably delusional I had to reread it twice. My house. My fully paid off car. Half my retirement savings. $300 monthly support because Caleb needs stability during this emotional transition. And my favorite, ownership of the dog I adopted before we met. Dana chuckled darkly. He wants everything except your property taxes. It was absurd. But absurdity became terrifying when the list abruptly changed. Suddenly, he wanted only the house and one car. No monthly support. A sharp drop. Too sharp. Dana leaned back. He's scared. He's rushing to settle before we discover something. She was right, and I was about to find out exactly why. The email from Caleb's lawyer kept replaying in my mind. Let's settle quickly. My client is willing to reduce his demands significantly. Men like Caleb don't suddenly become generous. He wasn't having a change of heart. He was hiding something. Dana, my attorney, leaned back in her chair with that quiet, predatory calm she had mastered. He's pushing too fast. He's afraid of something we haven't uncovered yet. What kind of something? I asked. She tapped her pen. Financial secret. Debt. Hidden income. A cohabitation violation. Or... She paused. Someone else's influence. Like the woman he's seeing, I said. Dana's eyes flicked up. Possibly. I didn't mention Miranda's hand resting over her stomach. Not yet. I wasn't sure if I had imagined it, or if my mind was trying to make sense of chaos. Dana sifted through Caleb's financial disclosures, scrutinizing bank transactions, medical bills, location histories. Something's off, she murmured for the 10th time. The timing, the panic. After our meeting, I went home and opened my documentation folder. I stared at the timeline I'd built. Dates of his so-called late nights, the hotel stays, the apartment visits. Everything pointed to something deeper, something he was terrified would surface. 2 days later, I got my answer. My phone buzzed at 8:12 p.m., Caleb's sister. I didn't want to answer, but the part of me that valued data over emotion knew this could be important. I picked up. She didn't start with hello. Her voice was unsteady, trembling with something like desperation. Avery, we need to talk. No, I said, we don't. Please, just listen. A shaky inhale. He's going through a lot. I closed my eyes. Not my problem. It might be, she whispered. That was the sentence that made my blood run cold. What does that mean? Long silence, then softly. He's scared you'll find out. Find out what? Before I could ask, she burst into frantic rambling. He's overwhelmed. He doesn't have money. Miranda's situation is complicated. He's not trying to hurt you. He's just panicking. I froze. Miranda, the ex. The woman he'd once told me left him shattered. The woman he said he never wanted to see again. Why is Miranda involved? I asked carefully. Her breath caught. You don't know? I'm asking, I said, voice like a blade. There was a beat of terror that told me everything. She thought I already knew. I didn't speak. I waited. Then she broke. He didn't mean for it to happen, she said in a rush. It started before you even suspected. She came back. They talked. One thing led to another. My stomach nodded. And now she's... She cut herself off. Finish the sentence, I said. Silence. Then... She's pregnant, Avery. Everything inside me went quiet. Not shocked, not hysterical, just quiet. How far along? I asked. I don't know exactly. 5 months, maybe 6. Caleb said he's not sure, but I didn't even hear the rest. The world narrowed to a single point of clarity, cold and sharp. 5 or 6 months. I hadn't been intimate with Caleb in almost a year. Not since before he changed. Not since before the distance set in, the nights out, the fights he manufactured so he could storm off and stay gone. I ended the call mid-sentence. The next morning, Dana greeted me with a thin smile. I found it. Found what? Caleb's new medical insurance activity. He recently added someone as a dependent. My teeth clenched. Miranda. That's my guess. She slid a printout toward me. He's been covering her prenatal appointments. Prenatal. The word cut deeper than it should have. Dana leaned forward. Avery, you understand what this means, right? I understand perfectly. He's trying to secure assets before the baby arrives. Before you realize he's been financially supporting another woman using resources from this household. I nodded slowly. He wants my house, my stability, for his new family. Dana's voice lowered. And he's trying to hide the pregnancy from the settlement process. That alone is grounds for severe legal penalties. She sat back, expression sharpening. But the bigger issue is paternity fraud. I blinked. What? She tapped her folder. If Miranda's due date overlaps with your relationship timeline, Caleb could try to allege that you abandoned him during a pregnancy, or imply the child involves you financially. The idea was absurd, insulting, infuriating. And yet, it was exactly the kind of manipulation he'd attempt. He wouldn't, I whispered. Dana arched an eyebrow. He absolutely would. She was right. I knew she was right. Caleb had become a man capable of anything, except honesty. Dana continued. We need proof of conception timing. I'm working on getting appointment dates. And Avery? Yes? Do not contact him. Do not confront him. Let him make the next mistake. I nodded, gripping the chair silently. That night, Caleb broke his own no-contact boundary. My phone lit up with his name. I stared at it, then answered. His voice was frantic, shaking. Avery, please, we need to talk. Everything goes through attorneys. No, listen, I need you to not bring certain things into the settlement. What things? He hesitated. That told me everything before he spoke. Don't bring up the pregnancy. The word hit like a hammer, but I kept my tone flat. Whose pregnancy? His breath stuttered. Avery, please. Say it. Long silence. Then, Miranda's. I leaned back, the universe suddenly very quiet. So you do know. He sounded like he was choking. I'll give you whatever you want. Keep the car, the savings, everything. Just don't humiliate me in court, please. You think I'm worried about humiliating you? I said softly. Caleb, I haven't touched you in nearly a year. She's 6 months pregnant. You do the math. He made a broken noise, a mixture of anger, desperation, and the realization that the truth was now a living thing he couldn't bury. It's not my fault, he snapped suddenly. She came to me. She said she needed closure. So you slept with her for closure? It was complicated. It always is, I murmured. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I simply ended the call. Then I texted Dana. He called. He admitted the pregnancy. He wants me to stay quiet. Her reply came within seconds. Perfect. This changes everything. But the real storm hadn't hit yet. The next day, Dana called me first thing in the morning. Avery, you need to sit down. I sat. We pulled the medical timeline. I braced myself. Miranda isn't 5 months pregnant, she said. My heart thudded. She's 6.5. 6.5. A half year. He's been cheating for longer than we thought, Dana continued. Much longer. I closed my eyes. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was a second relationship, a secret life, running parallel to mine. and Caleb planned to build a home for it, using my foundation. Dana's voice softened. This is now legally significant. Very. He's tried to hide a pregnancy that disproves his entire settlement argument. And Avery? Yes? It's time, she said. We're taking this to the hearing. The courthouse smelled like cold air and old paper, the scent of endings and consequences. Dana and I arrived early. She wore a charcoal suit that made her look like the kind of woman who could slice through lies with a single sentence. I sat beside her, hands steady, breath even. I had rehearsed this calm. What I wasn't prepared for was Caleb's entrance. He walked in flanked by his mother and sister, his shoulders stiff, but chin lifted like a man playing the victim in his own story. But behind them, slightly slower, came Miranda. She was unmistakably pregnant now. Round, visible, undeniable. A soft pink maternity dress, stretched across her stomach, chosen too deliberately not to be a message. She wanted the judge to see her. She wanted me to see her. Caleb caught my eye and smiled. A smug, triumphant, nauseating smile. The kind of smile someone wears when they think they've already won. Miranda's hand drifted protectively to her belly as she sat down. Caleb whispered something to her, and she nodded, eyes downcast. They looked like a couple presenting a united front. Fragile, but united. I had expected a punch in the chest, a twist, a sting. Instead, I felt nothing. Just that cold, crystalline silence competency gives you. The kind that tells you the truth is gravity, and they're about to fall. Caleb leaned toward me across the aisle. Loud enough for the court reporter to hear, he murmured, "See what you lost?" I looked at him for a long, quiet moment. Then, just as softly, but with the precision of a scalpel, I replied, "Do I know the father?" His mother gasped. Miranda froze. Caleb's smile died so fast it was almost comical. Dana's lips twitched, fighting a victorious smirk. A bailiff called for order. The judge entered. A woman in her 50s with clipped gray hair, sharp eyes, and the face of someone who had no patience for liars on a good day. And this wasn't going to be one. She took her seat. Let's begin. The early questions were procedural. Cohabitation assets, timeline of separation, grounds for legal relief. Caleb's lawyer, a nervous man with a shaky voice, tried to paint Caleb as a heartbroken partner abandoned during emotional distress. Avery left the relationship abruptly, he claimed, without explanation. My client was devastated and required financial support. Dana stood. Your Honor, may I submit evidence contradicting that assertion? The judge nodded. Proceed. Dana presented our documentation folder like it was a neatly wrapped gift. Exhibit A, call logs showing hundreds of messages between Caleb and Miranda. Exhibit B, location data confirming repeated overnight stays at the apartment complex. Exhibit C, bank statements with hotel charges Caleb claimed were work-related. Exhibit D, insurance activity showing prenatal coverage for a woman who was not me. The judge flipped through the pages, expression flattening. Then she looked up. Mr. Riker, she said, voice dangerously calm. Your filing states that Ms. Lockwood abandoned you during a pregnancy. Is that correct? His lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, I'm asking your client, the judge cut in. Caleb swallowed. Yes, that was part of the emotional hardship. Whose pregnancy? The judge asked. Silence. His lawyer stuttered. Well, there is some ambiguity as to... Dana stood again. Your Honor, there is no ambiguity. We have medical documentation indicating Ms. Hale, the ex-girlfriend Mr. Riker resumed a relationship with, is 6.5 months pregnant. We also have evidence establishing Ms. Lockwood and Mr. Riker had not been intimate for nearly a year. A thick, suffocating stillness fell over the courtroom. The judge turned to Caleb. Is this baby yours? Miranda squeezed his arm. Her eyes were wet, afraid, maybe ashamed. Caleb looked at his lawyer, looked at the judge, looked anywhere but at me. Finally, he croaked, It could be. The judge's eyebrows arched so sharply I thought the air might split. Could be? She repeated. Mr. Riker, were you intimate with Ms. Lockwood during the conception window? Caleb's jaw clenched. He didn't speak. Mr. Riker, the judge said, voice cutting clean through the tension. You are under oath. Answer the question. His voice came out in a whisper. No. Miranda covered her face with both hands. The judge wasn't done. So the child Ms. Hale is carrying, she continued, is the result of an extramarital affair you engaged in during your cohabitation with Ms. Lockwood. Caleb's silence was its own confession. Dana let the silence stretch, heavy and damning, then stepped forward. Your Honor, we also submit evidence that Mr. Riker attempted to use this pregnancy to claim abandonment and request financial support from Ms. Lockwood. This constitutes an attempted fraud. His lawyer paled. Your Honor, my client was under emotional stress. Emotional stress, the judge said sharply, does not justify deception in sworn filings. Caleb tried to speak. I didn't mean... The judge held up a hand. Stop. He stopped. Completely. The asset decisions took 20 minutes, but felt like a full exorcism of the past year's deceit. The house, the judge ruled, remains Ms. Lockwood's property. She paid the down payment and majority of the mortgage. Mr. Riker is entitled to none of it. Caleb's mother inhaled sharply, furious. The car Ms. Lockwood purchased outright remains hers. The vehicle Mr. Riker is still making payments on remains his sole responsibility. Miranda sobbed softly. As for financial support, the judge continued, Mr. Riker's request is denied. His lawyer blinked. Your Honor, denied fully? Fully, she said flatly. This court does not reward fraudulent behavior. He deflated like a punctured balloon. And finally, the judge said, Mr. Riker will pay Ms. Lockwood's legal fees due to the misleading claims in his petition. Caleb's sister audibly gasped. Their mother muttered something venomous under her breath. Miranda wept harder. Caleb looked like he had swallowed glass. The gavel hit wood. Hearing adjourned. The room erupted. Caleb's mother lunged toward me, face contorted. I hope you're happy. You ruined him. You ruined all of us. Dana stepped between us in one seamless motion. Ma'am, step back. That baby could be yours someday, she shrieked. Dana's voice was cold steel. If your son continues pursuing that claim, we will request a court-ordered paternity test. When it confirms he is the father and Ms. Lockwood is uninvolved, we will sue for fraud. Silence, the kind that ends wars. Caleb's mother backed away. Miranda clutched her stomach, crying. Caleb hovered between them, like a child who had just realized the fire he set was going to burn him too. Dana and I walked out of the courtroom. I breathed in the cold morning air. For the first time in months, it didn't feel tight in my lungs. It went well, Dana said lightly. It did, I replied. In the glass door of the courthouse, I caught my reflection. Calm, composed, unbroken. Caleb had tried to build a future on my foundation. Instead, he buried himself in the rubble. And I, finally, stepped free of it. The morning after the hearing, my house felt different. It wasn't quieter. It was lighter. As if someone had lifted a pressure valve and finally let the air move again. The walls didn't echo with tension. The floors didn't feel like I had to walk gently to avoid provoking a ghost of a relationship. Caleb's leftover items, the ones he never came back for, sat boxed neatly by the front door. I had no intention of contacting him. Let him cling to the chaos he created. I was already somewhere else. Not physically, not yet, but mentally, emotionally. I'd left long before the judge lowered her gavel. News of the hearing spread fast. Mutual friends who once stayed neutral suddenly remembered their spines. I had no idea he was cheating that long, one text read. I heard Miranda moved in with him before the breakup, another whispered digitally. I didn't respond. It didn't matter anymore. The only update I took note of came from a quiet message forwarded through the grapevine. Miranda gave birth. Caleb's name is on the birth certificate. He pays support but doesn't visit. I sat with that for a long time. Not with anger, not with pity. Just a strange stillness. The kind you feel when a storm rips a tree out of the ground. You don't rage at the wind. You just stand there staring at the roots, realizing how deep the rot went. A month after the ruling, I sold the house. It was fast. Over-asking. The kind of sale you don't question. I signed the final papers on a Friday afternoon, handed over the keys to a cheerful young couple, and walked out of the driveway that had once held my car and Caleb's lies. Dana stood beside me, arms crossed, surveying the empty space. You did well, she said. You did better, I replied. She smiled, crisp and pleased. Take the weekend off. Do something for yourself. I did more than that. I bought a condo. 2 bedrooms, modern building, good natural light, quiet hallways. No memories, no ghosts, no echoes of his voice leaking through the walls. My dog, Cooper, sniffed every corner of the new place like he was reclaiming territory. Then he settled at my feet as if to say, "This is ours now." And it was. Fully, irrevocably, peacefully ours. I didn't plan on dating again. Not soon. Maybe not ever. My trust had been sandblasted to bone. But life doesn't follow emotional timelines. It doesn't wait for you to feel ready. Sometimes it simply places someone in your path. His name was Cole Hartman, a paralegal from another firm, one who had occasionally assisted with document transfers during my case. I ran into him at a coffee shop, arms full of folders, tie crooked in an endearing way. "Avery?" he asked, blinking as if he wasn't sure he recognized me outside of legal hellfire. "Cole," I said, surprised. He gave me a warm, earnest smile. "How are you?" It was the first time someone asked that question where I didn't automatically shrink. "I'm good," I said honestly. His eyes softened. "I'm glad." We talked, then talked again, then met for coffee intentionally. Cole was gentle, grounded, thoughtful. No grand gestures, no love bombing, no red flags waving like parade banners. He didn't treat stability as a cage. He didn't treat trust as something he could borrow. And he didn't treat my past like a burden. One evening, after I told him the full story, end to end, he shook his head and said, "Your ex didn't outsmart you. He exposed himself. You just held the mirror." I didn't expect his words to hit me so hard, but they did, because for months I had wondered, in quiet moments, if I had somehow failed, if my vigilance came too late, if I had missed warning signs. But the truth was simpler. Caleb didn't cheat because I lacked something. He cheated because he lacked everything. 2 months after the custody ruling, I ran into Caleb. Of all places, the grocery store. I was picking up lemons. He was pushing a stroller. He looked exhausted. Not physically, spiritually. Like someone carrying around a life sentence he'd written himself. The moment he saw me, he stiffened. Panic flickered across his face. He turned the stroller abruptly, nearly bumping into a display of cereal boxes, trying to disappear behind an end cap of canned soup. I didn't follow, didn't speak, didn't even slow down. I kept moving through the aisle as if he were nobody, because he was. Not my responsibility, not my unfinished chapter, not my problem. Later, I got a message from his sister. "She's struggling. The baby cries nonstop. She asks about you sometimes. She says she misses you." I stared at the message for a single beat before blocking the number. I didn't need to respond. My silence carried its own answer. "I owe you nothing." People always want a moral at the end of a messy story. A ribbon tied around the chaos. A lesson learned. A narrative arc. But life is rarely poetic, it's practical. Caleb made choices. Choices rooted in selfishness, deceit, and desperation. He wanted everything. The affair, the comfort I provided, the home I built, and eventually, the funding for a child he knew wasn't mine. He gambled with lies. And the judge simply did what truth always does. It rose. I didn't win because I fought harder. I won because I didn't lie. That moment in court, that precise second, when he told me, "See what you lost?" And I answered, "Do I know the father?" That wasn't petty. That was the truth. The truth he spent months trying to bury under manipulation, deception, and absurd legal claims. The truth the judge used to dismantle his entire argument piece by piece. The truth that stood when everything else collapsed. Sometimes I look around my new condo, sunlight pouring through the windows, Cooper asleep on the rug, Cole talking softly as he brings in dinner. And I realize something profound. My life isn't smaller without Caleb. It's larger, calmer, cleaner, mine. Entirely mine. This chapter is closed. Not with drama, not with bitterness, but with clarity. I survived betrayal, I protected myself, I told the truth, and I walked away with my dignity intact. He walked away with consequences. And that, in the end, is justice.